Rahul Mehra and his seemingly devoted wife lived what everyone thought was a perfect life, until a secret online relationship with a stranger turned out to be a deadly trap, orchestrated by the one person Rahul trusted the most, his own sister-in-law. Rahul Mehra's life appeared ordinary and respectable to anyone who looked from the outside. He lived in a crowded Indian city where days were long and routines rarely changed. Every morning, he left home early, blending into the rush of buses, scooters, and office workers. He held a steady job that paid enough to support his family, and he took pride in being seen as responsible. Neighbors often described him as quiet and dependable, the kind of man who never caused trouble and always kept to himself. His marriage seemed stable, built on years of shared responsibility rather than passion, and that was considered normal within his social circle. After marriage, Rahul and his wife moved into a joint family home, a place where privacy was limited and expectations were high. The house was always full of movement, voices, and unspoken rules. Elders watched closely, younger relatives followed routines, and everyone played their assigned role. Rahul adapted to this environment by becoming emotionally reserved. He avoided conflict, kept his thoughts private, and focused on fulfilling his duties. On the surface, he was the ideal husband, attending family functions, contributing financially, and maintaining a calm appearance even during stressful times. His wife trusted him completely. She believed that his silence meant strength and maturity. Photos of family gatherings were regularly shared online, showing smiling faces during festivals and celebrations. These images helped reinforce the belief that everything inside the home was peaceful. But behind closed doors, Rahul felt increasingly disconnected. He struggled to express himself in a house where opinions were shaped by tradition and hierarchy. He often felt unseen, even while surrounded by people. Late at night, when the house finally grew quiet, Rahul found comfort in his phone. The glow of the screen offered a private escape from the expectations of daily life. At first, he used social media casually, watching short videos and reading posts. Over time, he joined online groups where strangers discussed relationships, stress, and personal struggles. These spaces felt different from his real world. No one knew his family name or judged his role as a husband. He could exist without pressure, even if only for a few minutes each night. As days turned into weeks, Rahul became more attached to these online spaces. He started spending longer hours scrolling, often losing track of time. The digital world gave him something he did not realize he was missing: attention without obligation. Likes, replies, and private messages created a sense of validation. He felt heard in a way he had not experienced at home. Slowly, this habit became routine, blending seamlessly into his life without raising suspicion. Within this online environment, Rahul came across a profile that stood out. It belonged to someone who seemed thoughtful and emotionally aware. The account shared posts about loneliness, understanding, and emotional pain. These words resonated deeply with Rahul. Without much thought, he followed the profile. Soon after, he received a private message. It felt casual and harmless, like countless interactions he had seen others engage in. He did not see it as a risk or a betrayal, only as a brief distraction from reality. Rahul responded, unaware that this small action would set off a chain of events he could not control. The messages were comforting, carefully written to reflect empathy and shared experience. He felt an instant connection, as if someone finally understood his unspoken thoughts. At home, his life continued unchanged. Family meals were shared, responsibilities were met, and routines stayed intact. No one noticed the shift happening quietly inside him. This double life did not feel dangerous at first. It felt invisible. Rahul believed he was simply talking to a stranger who would disappear like all the others. He did not consider how easily trust could be built in the dark corners of the internet. As he placed his phone down each night, he carried a growing sense of anticipation, unaware that the foundation of his seemingly perfect family image had already begun to crack. The online connection that Rahul had stumbled into began to take a stronger shape as days passed. The profile that first seemed ordinary now felt unusually attentive. Messages arrived at the exact moments Rahul felt most alone, often late at night when the house was silent and his thoughts grew heavy. The timing felt comforting, almost intentional, and he slowly started looking forward to these interactions. What began as short exchanges soon turned into long conversations that stretched deep into the night, pulling him further away from his real surroundings. The person behind the profile presented herself as someone living far from India, claiming a life filled with isolation and emotional neglect. Her posts spoke of broken trust and failed relationships, stories that echoed Rahul's own quiet frustrations. Each message was carefully written, reflecting his feelings back to him in a way that felt deeply personal. This emotional mirroring created a sense of safety, making Rahul believe he had found someone who truly understood him without asking anything in return. As trust developed, Rahul shared more about himself. He spoke about the pressure of living in a joint family, the loss of personal freedom, and the constant expectation to remain strong and silent. He revealed small details about his daily routine, his finances, and his struggles at work. Each confession was met with reassurance and sympathy. The responses never challenged him or questioned his actions. Instead, they encouraged his sense of being misunderstood and emotionally neglected, strengthening his dependence on the online bond. Over time, the tone of the conversations began to shift. The messages grew more intense and emotionally charged. Compliments became frequent, praising Rahul for his patience and loyalty. Subtle hints suggested that he was special, different from other men, and worthy of deeper commitment. This attention filled a void he had long ignored. He started checking his phone constantly, even during family gatherings, careful to hide the screen from others. The online relationship slowly introduced a sense of secrecy. The profile emphasized privacy, warning Rahul that outsiders would never understand their connection. This idea created an invisible wall between him and his family. He began deleting chat histories and locking his phone, habits that felt justified in his mind. He convinced himself that secrecy was necessary to protect something meaningful, not realizing that isolation was the true goal. The first request came quietly. It was framed as a temporary problem, a moment of desperation shared between trusted individuals. Rahul was asked for a small financial favor, nothing that seemed alarming. He hesitated briefly but agreed, believing it was a harmless act of kindness. The gratitude he received afterward was overwhelming, reinforcing his belief that he was helping someone who genuinely cared about him. Once money entered the equation, the dynamic changed completely. Requests became more frequent, each one accompanied by emotional pressure. The messages hinted at self, blame, and fear, suggesting that refusal would lead to severe consequences. Rahul felt responsible, even though the situation made him uncomfortable. He began transferring money quietly, using savings meant for household needs. Guilt followed, but it was quickly masked by reassurance from the online profile. The relationship grew darker as the profile started testing Rahul's loyalty. He was encouraged to distance himself emotionally from his wife, subtly framing her as part of his unhappiness. The messages suggested that real understanding could only exist online. Rahul's behavior at home shifted. He became irritable, distracted, and emotionally absent. His wife noticed the change but assumed it was work stress. Fear slowly replaced comfort. Rahul realized he was losing control, but he felt trapped by the secrets he had shared. The online profile now held power over him, armed with personal information that could destroy his reputation. Threats were never direct, but the implications were clear. Rahul continued engaging, believing that compliance was the only way to keep his life intact. What he did not know was that the trap had already closed. Every message, every payment, and every emotional confession was carefully recorded. The person behind the screen was not a distant stranger, but someone watching him closely in real life. As Rahul sank deeper into the online illusion, the danger moved closer, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The cracks in Rahul's carefully constructed life began to widen in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. Small changes in his routine, which he barely noticed at first, started raising silent alarms around the house. His wife sensed a shift in his behavior. He grew quieter, more withdrawn, and at times oddly defensive. Simple questions about his day or his late night habits were met with irritation or vague answers. She brushed it off as stress from work, but a nagging unease lingered. The family, accustomed to Rahul's calm demeanor, began noticing minor inconsistencies: tumors, placed documents, hurried excuses, and sudden secrecy with his phone. One evening, an event that seemed insignificant would change everything. A technical glitch caused a shared device to reveal saved login details for one of Rahul's accounts. It was an accident that could have been easily overlooked, but curiosity drove his wife to check. At first, nothing made sense. Random conversations, unfamiliar usernames, and messages that seemed both intimate and strange. As she scrolled, realization slowly dawned. The account that had been whispering into Rahul's late night hours was not what it seemed. Every interaction, every confession, every transfer of money now carried a new weight. The person behind the screen was closer than anyone could have imagined. The investigation that followed in that quiet moment revealed a shocking truth. The catfish, the person Rahul believed was living far away, was not a stranger at all. The digital identity was traced back to within the very walls of their home. It was someone who had been there all along, blending seamlessly into the family and observing Rahul without raising suspicion. The betrayal was unimaginable, a web of deception spun from familiarity, targeting not just his heart but his sense of security. The realization struck him like a physical blow, leaving him unable to comprehend how someone so close could manipulate him so completely. Rahul's sister-in-law was revealed as the mastermind behind the online persona. She had studied his habits with meticulous care, noting when he was most vulnerable, what he feared, and how to gain his trust. Her messages were calculated, designed to pull him deeper into a web of emotional dependence. Every word he had trusted, every secret he had shared, was weaponized in a way he had never anticipated. The revelation tore at the fabric of his daily life. A house that once felt safe now seemed like a trap, every corner filled with potential deceit. The impact extended beyond emotional betrayal. Family dynamics shifted immediately. Confusion, anger, and suspicion took root among relatives who had always trusted each other. Conversations became guarded, glances were loaded with unspoken questions, and the sense of safety that had once defined the household disappeared. Rahul, who had once been seen as the reliable, responsible figure, was now caught in a storm of scrutiny and judgment. His every action was examined, and every word he had said in confidence was tainted by the knowledge of the deception that had occurred. Even as the family struggled to process the truth, the sister-in-law's manipulation was far from over. The digital deception had given her a power that extended into reality. She used Rahul's secrets to control him, shaping his behavior with subtle threats and emotional pressure. The boundaries between online and real life blurred, and Rahul found himself caught in a dual reality. He could no longer distinguish safety from danger, loyalty from manipulation, or truth from fabrication. The sister-in-law's motives remained murky, a mix of jealousy, greed, and the need for control, but her actions were deliberate and precise. As investigators and family members began piecing together the events, the extent of the betrayal became undeniable. Rahul's online relationship, once seen as a private escape, had been a carefully orchestrated trap. The person he had trusted most, the figure who had claimed to be distant and lonely, was hiding in plain sight. The revelation was more than just a shock. It was a turning point that reshaped every aspect of his life, exposing the fragile nature of trust and the dangerous reach of digital manipulation. Rahul had walked unknowingly into a web spun within the walls of his own home, and the consequences of that deception were only beginning to unfold. The revelation of the sister-in-law's deception sent Rahul into a state of panic that grew with each passing day. What had started as an online relationship for emotional comfort now threatened to consume his entire life. The web of manipulation that had seemed distant and abstract suddenly became tangible. The sister-in-law, having secured his trust and knowledge, began to exert control over him in ways he could not escape. Every move he made was subtly monitored, and her influence seeped into every corner of his daily existence. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage where one wrong step could trigger devastating consequences. At first, the control was psychological. She reminded him of his secrets through veiled references and insinuations, creating an environment where he constantly questioned his decisions. Minor disagreements at home became fraught with tension as Rahul struggled to maintain composure while hiding the truth. He was trapped in a cycle of fear and obedience, fearing the exposure of his private life and the ruin of his reputation. The online messages that once brought comfort now served as reminders of how much he had unknowingly surrendered. The sister-in-law's influence over him extended beyond mere threats. It was a slow, methodical dismantling of his confidence and independence. Financial pressure soon followed. Having already coaxed Rahul into making small payments, she escalated her demands. Under the guise of emergencies or crises, she requested larger sums, hinting that refusal would have serious consequences. Rahul, feeling trapped and responsible, complied despite the strain on his finances. Savings intended for household needs were drained, leaving him anxious and financially vulnerable. Each transaction reinforced the control she had over him, while simultaneously isolating him further from those who might help. His world had narrowed, and the sister-in-law's presence was now inescapable. As the tension inside the household escalated, strange incidents began to occur. Items in the home went missing, documents were altered, and blame shifted unpredictably among family members. Rahul's wife noticed the unease, but could not pinpoint the cause. Her trust in her husband remained intact, yet she felt a growing sense of danger that she could not articulate. The atmosphere in the house became heavy with suspicion and fear. Simple conversations were avoided, and every interaction carried the weight of unspoken tension. The family, unaware of the true depth of the manipulation, began to fracture, creating a volatile environment where a single spark could ignite disaster. Then came the turning point. One morning, Rahul's wife was found dead under circumstances that initially appeared accidental. The scene was chaotic, suggesting a fall or sudden mishap, but the inconsistencies were impossible to ignore. Investigators noted discrepancies that raised questions about timing, witness accounts, and the physical evidence. The household descended into shock and grief, struggling to reconcile the sudden loss with the life they had known. Rahul, already under immense psychological pressure, was now plunged into guilt, fear, and confusion. He feared that the truth of his online entanglement might come to light, further complicating the tragedy. The sister-in-law remained a quiet force in the background, using the chaos to her advantage. She manipulated perceptions, ensured blame shifted, and maintained her own image as a concerned relative. The control she had established online now seamlessly transitioned into reality, making it nearly impossible for anyone to separate her actions from natural events. Rahul's position was precarious. His secrets were still weaponized against him, leaving him vulnerable to both legal consequences and family suspicion. He realized too late that the web of deceit had moved far beyond the digital realm. The investigation intensified, and every hidden truth began to surface. Digital trails, financial records, and communication logs revealed the extent of the sister-in-law's manipulation. Rahul's complicity, though coerced and manipulated, could no longer be ignored. What had started as an emotional entanglement had transformed into a deadly sequence of events, blurring the line between victim and accomplice. The house that once symbolized family unity had become the center of a calculated, destructive plan. The danger had shifted from virtual shadows to real-world consequences, and Rahul, trapped in the aftermath, faced a reckoning he had never imagined. The truth slowly emerged like a dark shadow stretching across Rahul's life, revealing a carefully orchestrated plan that had been hidden in plain sight. Investigators pieced together the fragments of a story that seemed almost unreal. Every message, every financial transaction, every secret confession he had made online was scrutinized and traced back to the sister-in-law. The network of deceit she had constructed was astonishing in its precision. What had seemed like a private emotional escape for Rahul had been a trap from the very beginning, designed to manipulate, control, and ultimately devastate him and those around him. The digital evidence painted a chilling picture. The online persona had been entirely fabricated, its purpose to gain Rahul's trust, extract information, and influence his decisions. Investigators discovered detailed logs showing how she had monitored his behavior, studied his routines, and exploited his vulnerabilities. The messages he had once believed were intimate and comforting were in fact calculated instruments of manipulation. Each word had been designed to isolate him, create dependency, and blur the boundaries between trust and fear. The realization hit Rahul with unbearable force. Every confession, every act of compliance had been used against him. Financial records revealed the depth of her control. Money had been transferred under various pretenses, small at first, but increasing steadily, leaving Rahul financially weakened. She had strategically leveraged his sense of responsibility and guilt, ensuring compliance while maintaining an appearance of helplessness herself. The investigators noted how every transaction was accompanied by emotional pressure, threats disguised as concern, and subtle reminders of the secrets he had shared. It was no longer simply a matter of betrayal. It was an elaborate system of coercion designed to entrap him completely. The family struggled to process the scope of the deception. Shock turned into anger, and anger into distrust. Every interaction was now tainted by the knowledge that someone they had lived with, someone they had considered family, had been manipulating events from the shadows. The sister-in-law's actions had left lasting damage, not only emotionally but legally and socially. The household, once a place of celebration and security, was fractured, with every member forced to reassess what they had known about each other. The sense of betrayal was profound, extending far beyond Rahul himself. Rahul's role became a central focus of the investigation. Though he had been manipulated, his participation could not be ignored. Every act he had taken, every payment he had made, and every secret he had kept contributed to the sister-in-law's plans. He was confronted with the stark reality that the consequences of deception reach beyond the initial act. They ripple through lives, leaving lasting scars. The emotional burden was immense, and he was forced to confront not only the legal ramifications, but also the personal devastation caused by his decisions. The sister-in-law's motives were pieced together through careful interrogation and analysis. It became clear that the deception was not about romance but control, greed, and revenge. She had exploited familial trust, observed weaknesses, and created a psychological dependency that allowed her to manipulate events at will. Every interaction, every message, every carefully timed action had been part of a calculated strategy. The realization was horrifying. The person who had seemed ordinary, harmless, and familiar had orchestrated a plot of extraordinary cruelty. As the case drew national attention, it sparked conversations about the dangers of online deception and the vulnerabilities of personal relationships. Experts analyzed the methods used, emphasizing how emotional manipulation can blur the lines between reality and virtual influence. Rahul's story became a cautionary tale, a grim example of how easily trust can be weaponized, and how deception can hide behind a familiar face. The tragedy exposed the fragility of human judgment when confronted with the subtle, insidious forces of manipulation. In the end, the story was not just about an online relationship gone wrong. It was about betrayal within the closest bonds, the devastating impact of digital manipulation, and the consequences of trust misplaced. Rahul's life, once ordinary and controlled, had been upended by someone he considered family, leaving behind a narrative of heartbreak, caution, and loss. The digital world had created a deadly illusion, turning familiarity into danger and leaving a permanent mark on all involved. The lesson was stark and unforgettable. Trust, once broken in the hands of a master manipulator, can lead to destruction far beyond what anyone could imagine.